one that can see.
Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. You know, it was like John Rambo said, it wasn't our war. You asked us, we didn't ask you. But just like Vietnam was, this is a very political war. And it's a war that we were never really meant to win. Because there's too much money, there's too much riding on the existing structure. And so it's just simply easier to keep the existing structure intact and do the patchwork than it would be to do a total overhaul, which at this point in our history and in our society is really the only way to change things. But we do see a pushback. We do see the swinging of the pendulum from one direction to another. And knowing that this is an unwinnable war, this is why many of us have chosen to go our own way. And today we'll be talking about the heads of the Hydra. Those heads, of course, you know, different heads, but they all lead back to the same body. And there's many different, you know, heads of the Hydra that face us. We have the Tradcons. We have the anti-feminists. We have the feminists themselves, who are the obvious head. And in some sense, we, you know, even have, you know, our own kind against us in the form of the Mangina or the White Knight, and even other Mgtow out there. I guess it's just come as no surprise to most of us who have been following things as they are, to see this pushback against feminism. Feminism has become such a caricature of itself that it's almost not even worth bringing up, because most people realize the lunacy and the absurdity of feminism in and of itself, of what it's become now. And so there's this pushback by your everyday average woman who, you know, you see it, you know, I don't need feminism because, you know, whatever. But the majority of the time I've noticed that it's usually, you know, attractive women who wouldn't have needed feminism anyway, because they would have gotten plenty of help and praise and assistance and everything else, and had a pretty easy life by virtue of the fact simply that they were attractive. Most attractive women are not even most just conventionally attractive women don't even consider themselves feminists, or at least outwardly, you know, and vocally they don't. You know, like Karen Strong comes to mind. The Girl Writes What person. And I tried to watch one of her videos one time. It was just so painfully boring. But I think the reason that I never really understood why she was such a big deal, because, you know, in Mgtow we have the saying AWOLT. So it doesn't matter that Karen Strong is a lesbian. I've heard it said that she was. I don't know that for a fact, but it really doesn't matter, because the term AWOLT would go for her as well. And so I just assumed that, I mean, who is this person? Who is this woman to tell me and to try to inform me and talk about my experience as a man when she has never been that gender, as far as I know. You know, that's an example of the head of the Hydra. Or like I said, these kind of cutesy wootsy girls that are, you know, I don't need feminism because well, you don't need feminism because you have looks, you have not hit the wall. The women that need feminism are, you know, typically not very attractive to start with, so they have to have something to level the playing field. But I think that's, you know, there's not really a whole lot of reason to belabor the point on that. I think it's fairly obvious what these women are doing. A lot of men are, even though Mgtow is a small percentage of people, and I don't, you know, individually we're not really having it big of an impact, and it's a very small percentage of people. But there is a pushback because dating has become so absurd that a lot of guys are just not putting the effort in. I don't think they're necessarily Mgtow, because I think that a lot of these guys, I mean, to go the route that we've gone and to totally accept it whole hog is one thing. But I think a lot of these guys have adopted aspects of the red pill. They've not totally converted over to it, but they've adopted aspects of it. And so, it's taking a bit more to rope in your average guy now. And so women are now finding themselves having to compete with one another. And, being a feminist is not really, an attribute that most guys in the dating world are really looking for. So it goes back to that whole repackaging thing. And if you look at some of the top female entertainers that have been around, they're always reinventing themselves. They're always repackaging themselves. And this is just how women are in general. They repackage themselves and remold themselves and reshape themselves into whatever environment that they're in to give themselves the best advantage. And so we're seeing that with this pushback with the anti-feminist thing, which oftentimes goes hand in hand with the Tradcon thing. But if you'll notice, like I believe it was this past summer that PragerU came out with the marriage video, and they're arguably the epitome of what Tradcon is. And yet, these articles and these videos and these Tradcon spokesmouths that come out, and their message is always the same. It's always about how men need to change. It's always about how men are not men anymore. We're not real men. And it's never about how women can change or how women need to change. It's always about putting the blame and the onus on the men, which, it's just the same old story with them. And not only that, you have just the feminists themselves who are just out and out with the vitriol against anything that is masculine. You have what I referred to earlier as the manginas of the white knights, which in some sense are one of the most dangerous heads of the Hydra, because these are the guys that go out here and get physically violent with other men. They're oftentimes the men that are dumb enough to run to the aid of a random strange female they've never known or talked to, but yet would not do the same for their fellow man. They're just they're so desperate for female validation that they will do whatever it takes to get that. And so, as a matter of fact, the other day I had gotten a call from a guy. I don't even know how it was just a random call. Like I didn't call the number, I didn't text the number, and it was some girl's boyfriend. And of course he had all this, I don't know, evidently all was not well at home. So, but you have to really be careful of them, because they're the ones that are, they think that it's, I guess, the 17 or 1800s, and just at the slightest slight or perceived slight against a female, it is their duty, I guess, to uphold some sort of sanctity of femininity or whatever. And then, they're the Mgtow community itself. I don't know how many times I've clicked on a video or went perusing for some Mgtow content, and you've got people on there just bashing each other back and forth, and he doesn't agree with my ideas, and I don't agree with his ideas, and it's men going our own way. So by virtue of the fact, we're going to have a cornucopia, a plethora, if you will, of different beliefs and ideas and thoughts. But I guess the thing here to remember is, like I said earlier, we're not really fighting the war. We walked away from it. We're done with it. We see no value in sacrificing ourselves on the altar of gynocentrism. Another head of that Hydra, and I'm not necessarily speaking bad against the men's rights movement or anything like that. I just don't see that they've accomplished very much. And I feel that the way that they go about operating is they try to operate as to not offend anybody, as to not upset anybody. And as a result, they just don't get taken very seriously. And in a sense, that kind of undermines the whole thing at large. And another head that just doesn't get brought up a whole lot, but the white nationalist deal, this whole we must defend our women, we must defend the sanctity of white women and all this, and it's just like I just want to look at them and say, what do you mean our women? They've never been our women. It's as the old saying goes, if she was never really yours, it's just your turn. White, black, brown, Asian doesn't make a difference. She was never really yours. It was just your turn. But again, that all goes back to the plan to divide Mgtow against one another, to try to create either a racial divide or a regional divide or whatever the case may be. The beauty of Mgtow, though, which totally foils their plan, is that this is not some organized movement. These are guys waking up little by little, unplugging themselves, and it's having an impact without us having to do anything. And that's why Mgtow will really never be stopped. It'll never be quelled. It's only grown from here. I mean, I can remember back when I first got into it, what a small community it is, and now you just see the content exploding, and you see the philosophies and teachings of it playing out in the dating world as you see marriage numbers continue to fall, and even dating. Like I talked to a girl the other day that was kvetching about how she had to pay for half of her meal, and I just thought it was hilarious because these ideas are getting out there, and we're getting play, and we're not really doing anything. We're not fighting a battle. We're not wasting our energy on that. We've simply chose to go our own way. And oh, how society falls when men stop, caring and start going their own way. I am John Nada. This has been the Days of Thunder. And remember, you're free to do as you're told.